Going underground, going underground, going underground. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. John O'Keefe present and accounted for on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Please forgive me for my absence yesterday. I was busy, okay? I was just busy and was unable to make it yesterday. And so I apologize for not being here with you. And I know how some of us anticipate our time together. Sometimes we recognize that we are missing. And the hard part about YouTube is that I can't just call you and say, hey, can we do it tomorrow? So excuse me. Anyway, John O'Keefe present, accounted for here for another grand adventure. It is time. Let me give you a little bit of a seed of consideration for today. I want you to grab your notebook. It is time to build in a brand new section for our adventure. So many of you who are out there have a tendency to get involved and do the right thing. I will let you know that we have the ability to record and remember something that you have done in your day today. So often I spend time with darlings who are not able at the end of their day to recall a whole lot of the adventure that they've been on these last little bits of time. So I'm going to let you know that we are upon a brand new adventure, you, I, we, whoever. And I want to take you on this journey. So I will give you the title of the book that we are about to read. I will state that the last few books that we have read, we are talking about Look Both Ways. Look Both Ways, total realistic, almost realistic, historic fiction, but the reality is it was realistic fiction. The time before that was our creation stories with Then the Sun Came Down. That was Blackfeet. We will call that legend. I think we should call it legend. I believe some people, of course, Blackfeet will say that it is definitely truth and it is nonfiction and it is what it is. I'm going to state that under the current cultural support network that I live under, you'd probably say that it has something to do with being legend and myth because it happened such a long time ago that we can't quite put our fingers on it, and things have been passed down via word rather than written down, so there's not evidence, and therefore people can question whether it's truth or not. Prior to that, was that Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane? I think it might have been Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. And that, of course, would be fantasy, right? And to be really honest, I think we're headed back into fantasy at this point. Our next book is probably going to be a science fiction. This, you could kind of say, is kind of playing with science fiction because it does happen to real people, or at least people who you could believe are real, and also has some really stretched realities for us in our world today. But I will tell you that this story is really good. I'm going to tell you that the author's name is Suzanne Collins. Some of you, especially some of my older ones, older readers, may recognize that she is also the author of the series The Hunger Games. So some of us may have understood that, and I'm not going to tell my third grade kids to go read that yet. It's not time yet. But I will tell you that this is the author, Suzanne Collins. This is the first book in the Underland Chronicles. The Underland Chronicles. You see that? Book 1 in the Underland. Sorry, you can tell that this book has been used quite a bit. Book 1 in the Underland Chronicles. That's because the Overlander is a part of the statement, but actually the name is Gregor, the Overlander. Now, I'm not going to give you a whole lot in regards to that for right now, but I'm going to tell you that that is the name of this book. It is book 1 in the Underland Chronicles. And so you understand that there are multiple books in this series. In fact, if you like this book, you're going to see that you'll have 5 books that you will be able to read, including this one. So I am really interested in the idea that I introduce you to a series, and then if you're interested in continuing, then you go. You know what I'm saying? That's my job. Jay Patel, you are in perfect timing right now. I'm starting a brand new book today. I'm telling you, it's this one right here. Jay Patel, you're here. Woohoo! I'm super excited. Way to be here. You ready to rock and roll? Because we are literally just getting started. So Jay, you're in. Get your reader's notebook out. Get yourself opened to a brand new page and write Gregor the Overlander. And you can even write Suzanne Collins. Okay, so this is the deal, because I'm being the example like that. Look at Gregor the Overlander. It ain't beautiful, but it's there. And I am going to place this on 3. We begin on 3/2/21. We're starting right now, Jay. We start every day at 4 o'clock. Don't you know that? Monday through Friday, except for yesterday when I was too busy working and stuff. But it's good to see you here. You talk to your friends and you get them here, because this book is going to blow you away. We've got giant monsters in this. We've got talking animals. We've got people falling down vents in their laundry room. We have little brothers and little sisters. We have Gregor, who has a problem. That's what we're talking about. So here we go. We are beginning right now, Jay. You don't even get it. Like, we're literally starting this book today. We finished an awesome book last week. You just got perfect timing. That's what I'm talking about. Now I'm going to stop talking to that side thing, because I am here. Yes, Mr. O'Keefe. Yes, Jay. We're here right now. Right now, we are here. So it is good to have you. So let's get this going. I'm not answering that question. You figure that out. All right. Part 1. It's called The Fall. Part 1. I'm telling you. Remember last week we talked about character. Remember last week we talked about the idea that what we want to do is have a conversation about why do people get motivated to do what they do. All right, so here we go. The Fall, Part 1, Chapter 1, Page 1, for those of you who are marking it down. Now, I'm going to state, because some of you might be like, well, why did I just write that title down, Gregor the Overlander? Because now what you do is over here, you start sketching, you start writing notes down, you start having some kind of interesting record of what in the world is going on. Maybe even it's your favorite lines. So today, remember, we are in the exposition of a brand new story. We are in this space of trying to figure out what setting we have, what characters we have, and why in the world would I be interested in this story. It's 8:29 on the clock right now. That means we've got about 23 minutes to read, so let's get on. Chapter 1. Gregor had pressed his forehead against the screen for so long he could feel a pattern of tiny checks above his eyebrows. He ran his fingers over the bumps and resisted the impulse to let out a primal caveman scream. It was building up in his chest, that long guttural howl reserved for real emergencies, like when you ran into a saber-toothed tiger without your club, or your fire went out during the Ice Age. He even went so far as to open his mouth and take a deep breath before he banged his head back onto the screen with a quiet sound of frustration. Urgh! What was the point anyway? It wouldn't change one thing. Not the heat, not the boredom, not the endless space of summer laid out before him. It wouldn't change one thing. Not the heat, not the boredom, not the endless space of summer laid out before him. Oh, now I know what time of year it is. It's summer break and he's bored. He considered waking up Boots, his 2-year-old sister, just for a little distraction. but he let her sleep. At least she was cool in the air-conditioned bedroom she shared with their 7-year-old sister Lizzie and their grandma. A lot of people living in their house. It was the only air-conditioned room in the whole apartment. On really hot nights, Gregor and his mother could spread quilts on the floor of that bedroom to sleep, but with 5 in the room, it wasn't cool, just lukewarm. Gregor got an ice cube from the freezer and rubbed it on his face. He stared out at the courtyard where a stray dog sniffed around an overflowing trash can. The dog set its paws on the rim, tipping the can and sending the garbage across the sidewalk. Gregor caught a glimpse of a couple of shadowy shapes scurrying along the wall and grimaced. Rats. He never really got used to those. Otherwise, the courtyard was deserted. Usually it was full of kids playing ball, jumping rope, or swinging around on creaky jungle gyms. But this morning, the bus had left for camp, and every kid between the ages of 4 and 14 were on it, except one. Sorry, baby, you can't go, his mother had told him a few weeks ago, and she really had been sorry. He could tell by the look on her face. Someone has to watch Boots while I'm at work. And we both know your grandma can't handle it anymore. Of course he knew it. For the last year, his grandma had been slipping in and out of reality. One minute she was clear as a bell, and the next she was calling him Simon. Who was Simon? He had no idea. It would have been different a few years ago. His mom only worked part-time then, and his dad, who'd taught high school science, was off summers. He'd have taken care of Boots, but since his dad disappeared one night, Gregor's role in the family had changed. He was the oldest, so he'd pick up a lot of the slack. Looking after his little sisters was a big part of his slack. So all Gregor had said was, "That's okay, Mom. Camp's for kids anyway." He shrugged to show that. At 11, he was past caring about things like camp, but somehow that had made her look sadder. He's 11 years old. Got it? 7-year-old sister, 2-year-old sister, Lizzie, 7-year-old, Boots, 2, grandma, air conditioning, summertime, missing dad, mom having to work all the time. Follow? Do you want Lizzie to stay home with you? Give you some company? She asked. A look of panic had crossed Lizzie's face at this suggestion. She probably would have burst into tears if Gregor hadn't refused the offer. Nah, let her go. I'll be fine with Boots. So here he was. Not fine. Not fine spending the whole summer cooped up with a 2-year-old and his grandma who thought he was someone named Simon. He heard his grandma call from the bedroom. Gregor shook his head, but he couldn't help smiling a little. "Coming, Grandma," he called back and crunched down the rest of his ice cube. A golden glow filled the room as the afternoon sun tried to force its way through the shade. His grandma lay on the bed, covered by a thin cotton quilt. Every patch on the quilt had come from a dress she had made for herself throughout the years that she lived. In her more lucid moments, she'd talk Gregor through the quilt. "This polka dot Swiss I wore to my cousin Lucy's graduation when I was 11. This lemon yellow was a Sunday dress, and this white is in actual fact a corner of my wedding dress. I do not lie." This, however, was not a lucid moment. "Simon," she said, her face showing relief at the sight of him, "I thought you forgot your lunch pail. You'll get hungry plowing." His grandma had been raised on a farm in Virginia and had come to New York when she married his grandfather. She had never really taken to moving to New York. Boom. Now we know the setting. New York, summer. They live in an apartment. Only one room has air conditioning. Grandma and Boots and Lizzie sleep there. Sometimes Ma and sometimes Greg comes in and hangs out there too. I mean Simon, according to Grandma. She never really had taken to it. Sometimes Gregor was secretly glad that she could return to that farm in her mind, and a little envious. It wasn't any fun sitting around their apartment all the time. By now, the bus would probably be arriving at camp, and Lizzie and the rest of the kids would... "Ego!" squealed a little voice. A curly head popped over the side of the crib. "Me out!" Boots stuck the soggy end of a stuffed dog's tail into her mouth and reached up both arms to Greg. Gregor lifted his sister high in the air and blew a loud raspberry on her stomach. She giggled, and the doll fell to the floor. He set her down to retrieve it. "Take your hat," said Grandma, still somewhere back in Virginia. Gregor took her hand to try to focus her attention. "You want a cold drink, Grandma? How about a root beer?" She laughed. "A root beer? What is it, my birthday?" "How did you answer something like that?" Gregor gave her hand a squeeze and scooped up Boots. "I'll be right back, Grandma," he said loudly. "Wait, I'll be right back, Grandma," he said loudly. His grandma was still laughing to herself. "A root beer," she said, and wiped her eyes. In the kitchen, Gregor filled a glass with icy root beer and made Boots a bottle of milk. "Cold!" she beamed, pressing it to her face. "Yes, nice and cold, Boots," said Gregor. A knock on the door startled him. The peephole had been useless for a good 40 years. He called through the door. "Who is it?" "It's Miss Cormacci, darling. I told your mother I'd sit with your grandma at 4, a voice called back. Then Gregor remembered the pile of laundry he was supposed to do. At least he'd get out of the apartment for a bit. He opened the door to find Miss Cormacci, looking wilted in the heat. "Hello, you! Isn't it awful? I tell you, I do not suffer heat gladly." She bustled into the apartment, patting her face with an old bandana. "Oh, you dream. Is that for me?" she said. And before he could answer, she was gulping down the root beer like she'd been lost in the desert for months. "Sure," Gregor mumbled, headed back to the kitchen to fix another. He didn't really mind Miss Cormacci, and today it was almost a relief to see her. Great day one, and I'm looking forward to a trip to the laundry room," Gregor thought. Sorry. That was Gregor, not Miss Cormacci. Great. Day 1, and I'm looking forward to a trip to the laundry room, Gregor thought. By September, I'll probably be ecstatic when we get a phone bill. Miss Cormacci held out her glass for a refill. "So, when are you going to let me read your tarot, mister? You know, I've got the gift," she said. Mrs. Cormacci posted signs by the mailboxes offering to read tarot cards for people at $10 a shot. "No charge for you, honey," she always told Gregor. He never accepted because he had a sneaking suspicion Miss Cormacci would end up asking a lot more questions than he would. Questions he couldn't answer. Questions about his dad. He mumbled something about the laundry and hurried off to collect it. Knowing Miss Cormacci, she would probably had a deck of tarot cards right in her pocket, right at that moment. Down in the laundry room, Gregor sorted clothes as best he could. Whites, darks, colors. What was he supposed to do with Boots's black and white striped shorts? He tossed them in the darks, feeling it was surely the wrong decision. Pause. Ever had to do your own laundry? Ever? Oh my gosh. Okay, so here's the deal. As I continue to learn on a daily basis and cannot do Miss Rainey's laundry for her because she tells me that I ruin it, the deal is that there's always this whole idea of whites and then super darks, and then there's the colored ones in the middle, and each one of them you're supposed to use a different heat of water, and you're supposed to do this stuff. I can connect to what Gregor's struggle is right here. So, of course, you get a black and white thing, and you're supposed to have a dark set and a white set, and which one do you put it in? Well, you can't put the darks with the whites, and you can't put the whites. Anyway, most of their clothes were kind of grayish anyway. From age, not bad laundry choices. All Gregor's shorts were just his winter pants cut off at the knees, and he only had a few t-shirts that fit from last year. But what did it matter? If he was going to be locked in an apartment all summer, taking care of his sister. "Ball!" cried Boots in distress. "Ball!" Gregor reached his arm between the dryers and pulled out an old tennis ball Boots had been chasing around. He picked off the dryer lint and tossed it across the room. Boots ran after it like a puppy. Simile, right? What a mess, thought Gregor, laughing a little. What a sticky, crusty, dusty mess. The remains of her lunch egg salad, and chocolate pudding were still evident on Boots's face and shirt. She had colored her hands purple with washable markers that Gregor thought maybe a sandblaster could remove, and her diaper sagged down to her knees. It was just too hot to put on her into shorts. Boots ran back to him with the ball, dryer lint floating in her curls. Her sweaty face beamed as she held out the ball. "What makes you so happy, Boots?" he asked. "Ball!" she said, and then banged her head into his knee on purpose to speed him up. Gregor tossed the ball down the alley between the washers and the dryers. Boots flew after it. As the game continued, Gregor tried to remember the last time that he'd felt as happy as Boots did with her ball. He had had some decent times over the past couple of years. The city middle school band had gotten to play at Carnegie Hall. That was pretty cool. He'd even had a short solo on his saxophone. Things were always better when he played music. The notes seemed to carry him to a different world altogether. Running track was good too, pushing his body on and on until everything had been drummed out of his mind. But if he was honest with himself, Gregor knew that it had been years since he'd felt real happiness. Exactly 2 years, 7 months, and 13 days, he thought. He didn't try to count, but the numbers automatically tallied up in his head. He had some inner calculator that always knew exactly how long his dad had been gone. Boots could be happy. She wasn't even born when it happened. Lizzie was only 4, but Gregor had been 8 and had missed nothing. Like the frantic calls to the police, who had acted almost bored with the fact that his dad had vanished into thin air. Clearly, they thought he'd run off. They'd even implied it. He might be with another woman. That wasn't true. Just wasn't true. If there was anything Gregor knew, it was that his father loved his mother, that he loved him and Lizzie, and he would have loved Boots. But then, how could he have left them without a word? Gregor couldn't believe his dad would abandon the family and never look back. "Accept it," he whispered to himself. "He's dead." A wave of pain swept through him. It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. His dad was coming back because what? Because he wanted it so badly, it must be true. Because they needed him. No, Greg thought. It's because I can feel it. I know he's coming back. The washer spun to a stop, and Gregor piled the clothes into a couple of dryers. "And when he gets back, he better have a really good explanation for where he's been," muttered Gregor as he slammed the dryer door shut. "Like he's got bumped on the head and forgot who he was. Or he was kidnapped by aliens. Lots of people got kidnapped by aliens on TV. Maybe it could happen?" He thought about different possibilities a lot in his head, but they rarely mentioned his dad at home. It was easier that way. It was unspoken agreement that his dad would just return. All the neighbors thought he'd just left. The adults never mentioned it, and neither did most of the kids. About half of them only lived with one parent anyway. Strangers sometimes asked, though. After about a year of trying to explain, Gregor came up with a story that his parents were divorced and his dad lived in California. It was a lie, but people believed it, while no one seemed to believe the truth, whatever that was. "And after he gets home, I can take him," Gregor said aloud, and then stopped himself. He was about to break the rule. The rule was that he couldn't think about things that would happen after his dad got back. And since his dad could be back at any moment, Gregor didn't allow himself to think about the future at all. He had this weird feeling that if he had imagined actual events like having his dad back next Christmas or his dad helping to coach the track team, they would never happen. Besides, as happy as some daydream might make him feel, it only made returning to reality more painful. So that was the rule. Gregor had to keep his mind in the present and leave the future to itself. He realized that his system wasn't great, but it was the best way that he'd figured out to get through a day. Gregor noticed that Boots had been suspiciously quiet. He looked around and felt alarmed when he couldn't spot her right away. Then he saw a scuffed pink sandal poking out from the last dryer. "Boots, get out of there," said Gregor. You had to watch her around the electrical stuff. She loved plugs. As he hurried across the laundry room, Gregor heard a metallic clunk and then a giggle from Boots. "Great, now she's dismantling the dryer," thought Gregor, picking up speed. As he reached the far wall, a strange scene confronted him. The metal gate to an old air duct was wide open, secured by two rusty hinges at the top. Boots was squinting into the opening about 2 feet by 2 feet wide, which led into the wall of the building. From where he stood, Gregor could see nothing but darkness. Then a wisp of, what was it? Steam? Smoke? It didn't really look like either. Some strange vapor drifted out of the hole and curled around Boots. She held out her arms cautiously and curiously and leaned forward. "No!" yelled Gregor as he lunged for her. But Boots' tiny frame seemed to be sucked into the air duct without thinking. Gregor thrust his head and shoulders into the hole. The metal grate smacked into his back. The next thing he knew, he was falling down, down, down into empty, dark space. Chapter 2. Do I have time? Yes, I got to keep going until at least 2:30, right? Okay, yeah, okay. Gregor twisted around in the air, trying to position himself so he wouldn't land on Boots when they hit the basement floor, but no impact ever came. Then he remembered the laundry room was in the basement, so what exactly had they fallen into? The wisps of vapor had thickened into dense mist that generated a pale light. Gregor could see only a few feet in any direction. His fingers clawed desperately through the white stuff, looking for a handhold, but came up empty. He was plummeting down, downward so fast, his clothes ballooned around him. "Boots!" he hollered, and the sound bounced eerily back to him. There must be sides to this thing, he thought. He called again, "Boots!" A bright giggle came from somewhere below him. Go, said Boots. She thinks she's on a big slide or something, thought Gregor. At least she's not scared. He felt scared enough for the both of them. Whatever strange hole that they had slipped into, it must have a bottom. There was only one way to this spinning through space and how it would end. Time was passing. Gregor couldn't tell exactly how much, but too much to make sense. Surely there was a limit to how deep a hole they could go. At some point, you'd have to run into water or rock or the Earth's platelets or something. I mean, you were still on the Earth. It was all like this horrible dream he had sometimes. He'd be up high, somewhere where he wasn't supposed to be, usually like the roof of his school. And as he walked along the edge, the solid matter under his feet would suddenly drop out, give way, and go down. He'd fall. Everything would disappear, but the sensation of falling, of the ground closing in on him, of terror. Then, just at the moment of impact, he'd jerk awake, soaked in sweat, heart pounding. Me too, have this all the time. Like that, like, oh my gosh, have you ever had that moment? It's crazy. Oh my gosh, okay, yes. So, jerk awake, soaked in sweat, heart pounding, that's where he is. A dream. I fell asleep in the laundry room, and it's the same old crazy dream, thought Gregor. Of course, what else could it be? Calmed by the notion that he was just asleep, Gregor began to gauge his fall. He didn't own a wristwatch, but anyone could count seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. At 70 Mississippi, he gave up and began to feel panicky again. Even in a dream, you had to land. Didn't you? Just then, Gregor noticed the mist beginning to clear a little. He could make out the smooth, dark sides of a circular wall. He seemed to be falling down a large, dark tube. He felt an updraft rising from below him. The last wisps of vapor flew away, and Gregor lost speed. His clothes gently settled back on his body. Below him, he heard a small thump, and then the patter of Boots' sandals. A few moments later, his own feet made contact with solid ground. He tried to get his bearings, not daring to move. Total darkness surrounded him. As his eyes adjusted, he became aware of a faint shaft of light off to the left. A happy squeak came from behind it. Bug! Pee! Bug! Gregor ran toward the light. It leaked through a narrow crevice between two smooth walls of rock. He barely managed to squeeze himself through the opening. His sneaker caught on something, causing him to lose his balance. He tipped out from between the rock walls and landed on his hands and knees. When he raised his head, Gregor found himself looking into the face of the largest cockroach he'd ever seen. Now, his apartment complex had some big bugs. Miss Carmacci claimed a water bug the size of her hand had climbed out of the bathtub drain, and nobody doubted her. But the creature in front of Gregor rose at least 4 feet in the air. Granted, it was sitting up on its back legs, a very unnatural looking position for a cockroach, but still. "Big bug!" cried Boots again. And Gregor managed to close his mouth. I love this book. No, it wasn't a dream, Jay Patel. It wasn't, and you got so busted because you don't know. And the thing is 30 minutes of your life has just gone by because this book is so good. So, Gregor, let's talk about it for just a second. Family members. Ma, Lizzie, 7-year-old sister, Grandma, Boots. Stuck at home. Summer school. Oh, summer school. Summer. Just summer. Trapped. Not even summer school. Can't leave because mom's got to work full time. Why does she have to work full time? Well, that's because his dad just surprisingly disappeared 2 months ago. 2 years ago, and 7 months and 13 days ago. They live in New York. Miss Carmacci comes over to watch Grandma so that he can go down and do some laundry. And while he's down there, we get the backstory of what the heck happened to Dad. Well, he doesn't know. But we definitely know that he's wondering what's going to happen with Dad, but he still feels like Dad's around. Now, he was playing with a lint ball with him and Boots took off and ran through, and while he was daydreaming about his dad, all of a sudden he noticed that Boots got quiet, and all of a sudden he looks over like this, and around the corner, Boots is falling into a vent. Down, 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 right down. Into a strange place with a 4-foot tall, standing on your back legs cockroach. And it doesn't sound like Boots is terribly scared. It kind of sounds a little bit like Boots is kind of excited about the big bug. But Gregor isn't. That's what I'm talking about. How big's the vent? It said, oh my gosh, I can't believe nobody's responding to you. Jay, you're on fire. You're on fire. You better come back tomorrow. 4 o'clock, baby. So this is the deal. This is how a good book starts. And this is how a good book starts well. Now, there are 2 other people hiding right now while we're reading. And I appreciate that you're here. Jay, it's been a long time. It's good to see you. Maybe I'll see you every other Wednesday at our class meeting, if you know what I'm talking about. But it's not this Wednesday, it's next Wednesday. Get in touch with some of your old friends like Joshua or, I don't know, a few of the other people who show up. I love you. It's been awesome to start a brand new book. I hope cockroaches are a character that you can handle. I love you. It is wonderful to see you. It is wonderful to see you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, here's the book again, dude. I told you, look at it's all torn up because it's such a good book. Oh my gosh. Gregor the Overlander. Go check it out so you can read along with me. And make sure that you have your notebook so that you can do some notes. Mag, I'd love to see some of your artwork if you happen to do it. Anybody else hiding out there doing any artwork? It would be great to see you. I love you. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again, hopefully tomorrow, and I promise almost every day I'm here. I'm sorry if I was not here yesterday, but I'm so grateful that you came back today. Life gets busy sometimes. So anyway, let's get into this adventure. Gregor falling down vents into a place where cockroaches stand up on their back legs and are as tall as Jay Patel. I love you very much. Have a great afternoon. Be safe. Be wonderful. Don't let your little brothers or sisters fall down the vents in the laundry room. And until we see you again, I love you. Now get out of here.